Big thank you to today's sponsor, FUM. More about them later. Completely blown away. Blown away. Spectacular. Contempt prior to investigation. I try not to practice it, but I did with these. Almost didn't even listen to these, but I'm glad I did. Do you ever get in a product that you think is just going to be terrible? You know, when you do your YouTube videos, you get it in, doesn't look very good, you think it's going to be bad. Has that ever happened to you? Well, it happened to me, so sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about something that I had contempt prior to investigation about. Today is my 700th video. Holy cow, 700 videos. I started this October 2020, so this October will be 3 years. That's pretty awesome. I appreciate everybody watching from the beginning. I appreciate everybody that subscribed from the beginning. I appreciate everybody that's supported the channel, used an affiliate link, given me a super thanks for your coffee, bought an RCA cable, but simply just watched. Thank you so much. 700 videos. It's amazing. Cold turkey, that may be good on submarine sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. And I'm not talking about hypnotherapy, witch doctors, or sensory deprivation chambers. We're talking about today's sponsor, FUM. They look at the problem in a different way. No electronics. FUM is completely natural. And instead of terrible, bad chemicals, FUM uses all natural, delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, FUM is good. And it's a habit that you're free to enjoy because it's going to replace your bad habit. FUM comes with an adjustable airflow thing, just like that. It's made out of quality materials, wood. You can fidget with it. De-stress, lowers your anxiety. I didn't know what to expect when I got the FUM, but it's built beautifully. High quality materials. It's well balanced and it tastes yummy. And it's just air and delicious flavors. Stopping is something that we put off because it's hard, but FUM is easy and is enjoyable and even fun. Over 100,000 customers served. So go over to tryfum.com/cheapaudioman or scan the QR code and use code cheapaudioman to get 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com/cheapaudioman to get 10% off your Journey Pack when you order today. Thank you, FUM. I have talked about this a few times. It's called contempt prior to investigation. For me, it's when I bring a judgment, a preconceived idea into a product or situation without actually experiencing that product or the situation. It's kind of like when people say Chinese Class D amplifiers are all garbage. Well, that's contempt prior to investigation, because there's no way that whoever's saying that has actually listened to all the Chinese Class D amplifiers. Contempt prior to investigation. All this brand of speakers, they're all garbage. Contempt prior to investigation. All high-end stuff is a ripoff. That's one of mine. That's contempt prior to investigation, because obviously I haven't listened to all of the high-end stuff, but a lot of the high-end stuff that I have listened to is a ripoff. So there's been a few products that have rolled through the old Cheap Audio Man domicile because I've made 700 videos and I've had more than 700 products in here. And there are a few that I get in and I am underwhelmed. Usually it's because of how a product looks, which, how silly is that? I mean, why should I be judging a product on how it looks? I should be judging it on how it sounds, but there is always something about how a product, first impressions, right? Dress for success. Some of these products don't dress for success. They dress to depress. I almost didn't even listen to this thing. It completely changed my mind now. These are headphones. Did I fool you? Did I get you all the way into 3 minutes or whatever it is into this video, not knowing that it was going to be about headphones? These are the Harmonicdyne Athena, okay? These are the ones I almost didn't even listen to. I unboxed them. They come in a nice box. It's a big blue box. I'm not going to show it. You want to learn more about the big blue box? I said big blue box. It was hard to say big blue box. Big blue box. If you want to learn more about them, there's probably other videos out there where they're going to do an unboxing. Also, They have a very good cable, headphone cable. I seem to have misplaced it, so I was using my Heart audio cable, which I love because, and this is not, I'm not sponsored by Heart cables, but I love them. They have these detachable ends. That way you can put an XLR in here, 3.5 millimeter, anything you want. Back to the Harmonicdyne. This is what they look like. And this is why I didn't like them initially, because they feel, not necessarily feel, they look like they're a $35 headphone. There's a company called One Audio, and I have actually reviewed one of their products. They're terrible. They're like $35. The look is similar. The build quality on these is much better than those $35 headphones, which I would hope they'd be because these are around $180. If you look at things, it just doesn't scream premium. I mean, you do have a little bit of metal here, but trust me, there are a lot of cheap headphones out there, and they all look like this. There are some differences, though. On the bottom and the top, you can see that they're vented all the way around. And this is a semi-closed back, so it's not super isolating. So if you take these on a plane, you're going to hear stuff. Now, it's not completely open, but it's not completely closed either. It's semi-open, or kind of closed. On the bottom, you have dual 3.5 millimeter input jacks. So I have a cord that works on a lot of my headphones are now 3.5, which is great because I can just use the same cord. All right, here are the ear pads. Okay, they do come off fairly easily. They're kind of like suede, but I'm sure it's the fake suede, and then it's perforated on the inside. Roundy. Not too bad. This is the driver. The driver's a 50 millimeter. I think it's a dynamic driver. They call it Cerametallic or ceramic or something like that. I don't care. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the different construction, the different components of a driver, because even though a driver may be awesome in one headphone, it can be garbage in another. Good news is this is not garbage. May look like it from 2 or 3 feet away. Now I can't get this back on. Bass. First of all, let's talk about soundstage and imaging. Okay, it's superb. The layering forward to aft, the separation of instruments is absolutely superb. Live. Remember Live? It's a band from the 90s. They have a song called Dolphin's Cry. At the 2-minute and 22-second mark, he does his own backing vocals, and it was so good that it was like a new experience. It was like listening to that song for the first time. It was really spectacular. It was terrific. I just hadn't heard his vocals that separate. I didn't even know he was doing his own backing vocals. And I've listened to that song a bunch because it's on my test track playlist. And I was also listening to these off of the Cambridge Audio DAC Magic 200M, which is a DAC and a headphone amp. And then the source was the Cambridge Audio streamer, the Minx MNX10. That's what it was. All right, bass. Wow, by Beck. Very powerful bass on that one. And it seemed punchy. And I think it seems punchy around the 200 hertz area. We'll get into it a little bit more in the mid-range. But I felt like it was a little thick, just north of 150 hertz or so, which isn't a bad thing, as long as it doesn't bleed over to the mids. Talk about that again later. And the extension was really good. So at the 1 minute mark, I think around there it goes do-do. So it comes in, it has a regular bass hit, and then about a minute into it, it drops back down. Now, it wasn't subwoofer levels of depth and extension, but I could hear it very well. Better than on most headphones. I think the bass is really good. Again, a little bit thick. It gave me everything I wanted. 16th notes on bass drums was really good. Punchy, leathery, slappy, super good. Let's talk about mid-range. Mid-range is where this headphone, I think, really stands out from the crowd. And it's because of timbre, whatever you call it. Timbre. Basically, vocals sounded realistic. Acoustic guitars sounded realistic. It was uncanny just how accurate or realistic these sounded when it came to voices. Especially on Korn, Make Me Bad, Korn and The Cure, MTV Unplugged. Jonathan Davis's voice, he does a little bit of an intro before that song. His voice was like you were in the room with him. However, there is a part in that song, he starts off really low in the range. And as soon as he starts to go up in the range into what I would consider to be his kind of normal singing voice, the mid-range cleaned up, became crystal clear. I'm not saying the lower mids are veiled, but the lower mids are definitely not as detail oriented as the mid-range and the upper mid-range. And you could kind of hear it happening. So between 1 minute, so at the 1 minute mark, he's low in the register. And at 110, he starts to go up. And you can hear it just cleaning up through his voice. It was really interesting. Again, I'm not saying that it's bad on the lower mid-range. I'm just saying it's slightly less detailed than the middle mid-range. Give Me One Reason, Tracy Chapman. A lot of acoustic guitars. Her voice is actually, I think, a bit lower than Jonathan Davis's. So hearing her voice didn't have this screaming finite details that Jonathan Davis's voice had, but it was a little bit more romantic, a little bit editorialized by the headphones. It was great. It was caramelly. It was engaging. It was emotional. Just not quite as clean because it's a little bit lower in the register. Takeaway here is lower mids, not as detailed. Mid mids, detailed. Upper mids, detailed. Tonality, timbre, spectacular. Very good. Let's talk about treble. Treble, a little bit wavy here and there. There is a pop, I think, around 4 to 6K. Why? Because sometimes there's a bit of sibilance. However, this headphone is not fatiguing, which is great. I don't like fatiguing headphones. That's kind of a deal breaker for me, a fatiguing headphone. I was able to listen to this one for hours, though. So percussion is quick and thick, but some vocals are a bit sibilant. Make Me Bad with Robert Smith's voice had a tendency to be a little bit sibilant. That's what sibilance is. And it wasn't extremely distracting though, but it was there. And the rest of the treble is a little bit recessed. So the ride cymbal on Give Me One Reason, the 2 minute 30-second mark, really far back. You could tell that it was there, but it was definitely not put on display. So it's kind of in the background. Treble is actually pretty good. I don't think it's real flat here. I don't think you're going to hear everything exactly the same. You don't listen to this headphone and think, oh, this thing is a warm headphone. So, if that makes sense. What are my final thoughts? These are incredible. I listened to them for hours last night. I just kept listening to them over and over again. And when I forget that I'm evaluating a product and I just start to enjoy it, then that means it's a really great product. At least it is. For me, I ended up watching like Green Day, the 1994 Woodstock when Green Day played. Man, they were so good. And they were like they were babies back then. But it's really interesting to see them play early on. And it's interesting that all those songs off their first couple of records are still like legit, hold up, still awesome songs today. Then I listened to The Cure being inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then they performed 2 songs. And I just listened for pleasure. It was, they're very comfortable too. So I never got any hot spots. This sounds like a $300 headphone trapped in a $35 headphone's body. So don't judge these on looks like I did. And again, it's not that they're built poorly. This doesn't feel cheap. It looks cheap. I just wish these looked better. Maybe had some two-tone. Maybe the grill was gray under here. And just somehow get rid of this vacuous, huge, cheap-looking Harmonicdyne circle. Put some stickers on it or something. I mean, I'm sorry, Harmonicdyne. Your headphones sound great, though. But they look super cheap. I'll have to put some stickers on here. Get some cheap Audioman stickers. Pop it on there. What else do I have? Layering and instrument separation are really special. I heard a lot of things in music that I hadn't heard before, especially on that live track. What makes these stand out? Vocal realism, mid-range realism. I think they have a bit of that Sennheiser 6XX mid-range magic without sounding terrible on the rest of the frequency range. I'm sorry, man. The 6XX have no top ends. They're not good on the top end. Anybody that says they are, like, I get that that's like one of the most popular headphones out there, but I don't get, because I listen to a lot of music. They just don't sound good on the top end. then they kind of sound mushy on the bottom end too. The only good thing they have is that mid-range. These have a little bit of that mid-range speciality. Lower mids, which again, less detailed. So the lower mids on these are not nearly as detailed as the rest of the mid-range, but they have the 6XX vibe. Again, I don't understand why the 6XX is so popular. Percussion, thick and quick. Doesn't hang out with snare hits or the initial cymbal hits. And again, I think there's a pop around that 4 to 6K. So some percussion is really going to come forward and be really prevalent. That's about it. I love them. They're comfortable. They sound really good. I can't say I think they're fairly priced because it takes me out of it when I look at these things because they look so cheap. I think $180 is fair from a sound perspective. And I think from a sound perspective, they actually sound like more expensive headphones. I'm trying to think of anything under $300 sounds like these. They're pretty efficient too because they're not planars. So you'll be able to drive them off a variety of electronics or even just like your computer. These are probably going in my bag to go with me everywhere. They're just good and fairly cheap. So I'm not worried about breaking them. Highly recommended if you can get over how they look. Completely blown away. Blown away. Spectacular. Contempt prior to investigation. I try not to practice it, but I did with these. Almost didn't even listen to these, but I'm glad I did. So if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon. Patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Every Sunday night, we have Patreon-only Zooms, Patreon-only Discord, Patreon-only Facebook group. You can also use the links in the description. Those are affiliate links, which means if you click and you buy, I do get a commission, but it doesn't cost you any more, so it's a great way to support the channel. You can also sign up for Amazon Music, Tidal, or Rune. Links in the description. Click, sign up. They have a trial period. Even if you quit, though, I still get a couple of dollars. Finally, you can use the thanks button. Buy me a cup of coffee, but don't feel compelled to buy me anything. I almost made it through the whole thing. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu, unless it's through these things. Binge listen through your new Harmonicdyne Athena and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.